Imagine waking up to find everything you love, your family, your health, your identity, shattered in a single afternoon. Not because you failed, but because you were too perfect. This is the paradox of the book of Job, a cosmic wager that treats human suffering as a cold, philosophical experiment. It's been called history's most unfair story, but today we're going to see why it's actually its most essential masterpiece. We're not just exploring an ancient text, we're looking into a mirror of our own deepest pain to see what's left when the universe stops making sense. Meet Job. He's the person we all wish we were, or at least the person we want our neighbors to be. The Bible gives him the ultimate endorsement, describing him as blameless and upright. He's not just a good man, he's the moral gold standard. He's fabulously wealthy, has a sprawling, happy family, and possesses a reputation that is bulletproof. But in the grand ironic design of the story, Job's virtue is exactly what puts a target on his back. He is the perfect guinea pig for a very dark experiment. Meanwhile, far above the dusty reality of earth, the scene shifts to the divine court. Imagine a grand celestial assembly where God convenes his angels. Among them is a figure known in Hebrew as Satan, the adversary. Now forget the red suit and the pitchfork. In this ancient context, Satan isn't the king of hell. He's more like a cosmic prosecutor or a professional cynic. His entire job is to wander the earth, looking for the cracks in human sincerity. God, perhaps with a hint of pride, points out his star pupil. Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on the earth. Satan doesn't just disagree, he smirks. He offers a rebuttal that cuts to the very core of human nature. Does Job fear God for nothing, he asks? It's a devastating question. Satan's argument is that Job's goodness is purely transactional. He's only good because God has built a hedge of protection around him. In Satan's eyes, Job isn't a saint. He's just a man who knows a good deal when he sees one. Take away his toys, Satan suggests, and he will curse you to your face. But let's pause here, because this is where the story stops being a Sunday school lesson and starts being a psychological mirror. Many scholars and psychologists suggest that Satan represents something much more familiar, the voice of doubt inside all of us. He is our inner cynic. Think about it. How often do we question the motives of others, or even ourselves? When we see someone being kind, do we wonder if they're just chasing social points? This wager on the heavenly chessboard is actually a brutal test of conditional goodness. It asks a question that haunts the human condition. Are we good because it's right, or are we good because it pays? If the reward for your virtue was replaced with a lifetime of agony, would your character remain intact, or would it evaporate like a mist? God, confident in his servant, accepts the wager. He hands over the keys to Job's life, giving Satan total control over everything Job owns. With one catch, he cannot touch Job's body. Not yet. And with that, the celestial bet is on. In a series of rapid-fire tragedies that would make a modern news cycle look tame, Job loses it all. His livestock is stolen, his servants are put to the sword, and in a final, crushing blow, a desert wind collapses the house where his 10 children are feasting. Job's reaction? He doesn't curse. He doesn't scream at the sky. He tears his robe, shaves his head, and falls to the ground in worship. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Round one goes to God, but the adversary isn't finished. He's a professional after all. He returns to the divine court with a new taunt. Skin for skin, he says. He argues that a man will give up his children and his gold to save his own skin. Touch his bone and his flesh, Satan dares, and then we'll see who he really is. God raises the stakes. He allows Satan to strike Job's body. Suddenly, the blameless man is covered in agonizing sores from head to toe. He's forced to sit in a pile of ashes, scraping his skin with a broken piece of pottery just to find a moment's relief. Even his wife, watching him rot, gives up. Curse God and die, she tells him, but Job remains silent. He has become a man with no wealth, no family, and no health, a man with nothing left but his integrity. And as the smoke clears from the first act of this drama, we are left wondering, how much can a soul endure before the inner cynic finally wins? Job is now at rock bottom. He's sitting in a pile of ashes outside the city, scraping his sores with a piece of broken pottery. He's lost his wealth, his children, and his health. But now he's about to lose something even more precious, the support of his community. Enter the three friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar. They've heard of his misfortune and traveled a long way to comfort him. To their credit, when they see him, they don't even recognize him. They weep, they tear their robes, and then they do something truly profound. They sit with him on the ground for 7 days and 7 nights in total silence. No preaching, no advice, just presence. At this point, they are the best friends anyone could ask for. But then, the silence breaks, and that's when everything goes wrong. Job finally speaks, cursing the day he was born, and his friends can't stay quiet anymore. They move from silent empathy to vocal judgment. Why? Because they operate on a very simple, very rigid logic. The universe is a moral vending machine. You put in good deeds, you get out blessings. You put in sin, you get out suffering. This is the doctrine of retribution, and for these three men, it's the only thing keeping their world from falling apart. Eliphaz is the first to speak. He's polite at first, but his message is clear. Think now, who that was innocent ever perished. He's telling Job that if he's suffering this much, he must have a secret stash of sins he hasn't confessed. Bildad takes it even further, suggesting that Job's children died because they were wicked. Zophar, the bluntest of them all, tells Job he's actually lucky, that God is probably punishing him less than he deserves. With friends like these, who needs enemies? But there's a deeper, more uncomfortable reason why they are being so cruel. Modern psychologists call this the Just-World Fallacy. It's a cognitive bias where we desperately want to believe that people get what they deserve. Why? Because it makes us feel safe. Think about it. If Job is truly blameless, and yet he's sitting in ashes, it means the world is unpredictable. It means that tomorrow, for no reason at all, the same thing could happen to Eliphaz or Bildad or you or me. Our brains are pattern-seeking machines. We crave order. We want to believe that if we follow the rules, we'll be okay. When we see someone struggling, maybe they're unemployed or they've fallen ill or they've lost a loved one, there's a dark part of our psyche that wants to find a reason to blame them. Maybe they didn't work hard enough. Maybe they didn't take care of themselves. We don't say these things to be mean. We say them to convince ourselves that as long as we don't make those mistakes, we are safe. Job's friends aren't really arguing with Job. They are arguing with their own fear. They are terrified of a random universe. So they turn Job into a villain to keep their own sense of security intact. They are choosing a cruel logic over a hurting friend. This is the ultimate betrayal. Job is being gaslit by his own support system. He knows he's innocent. He's gone over his life 1,000 times in his head, and the math just doesn't add up. He's not just fighting the pain of his sores or the grief for his children. He's fighting a society that demands he be a sinner so they can sleep better at night. As the debate escalates, the friends move from theological advice to flat-out inventing crimes. Eliphaz eventually accuses Job of oppressing the poor and withholding bread from the hungry, crimes he has zero evidence for. They are so committed to their system that they would rather lie about a good man than admit their system is broken. But Job doesn't budge. In fact, their accusations push him toward a radical new idea. He stops looking to his friends for answers and starts looking toward the sky. He decides that if the world won't give him justice, he'll take his case to the highest court in existence. He wants a face-to-face meeting with the Creator. He wants a trial. And as we'll see, he's about to get exactly what he asked for. But it won't be anything like he expected. Job has reached the limit of human patience. He's done with the circular arguments of his friends. He's done with the ash heap. He wants a face-to-face meeting with the Creator. It's a bold, almost suicidal move. He's essentially summoning the Almighty to a deposition. He wants God to step into the witness box and explain himself. Suddenly, the sky doesn't just darken, it collapses. A whirlwind tears through the landscape. This is the moment every reader waits for. God finally shows up. But if you were expecting a sympathetic, "I'm sorry for your loss," or an explanation about the bet with Satan, you're in for a shock. God doesn't answer a single one of Job's questions. Instead, he asks 70 of his own. "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" God thunders. "Have you ever commanded the morning? Can you lead out the constellations in their seasons?" It's a barrage of cosmic scale. God takes Job on a breathtaking tour of the universe, from the depths of the ocean to the edges of the galaxy. He talks about mountain goats giving birth, eagles soaring, and the wild ox that refuses to be tamed. At first glance, it feels like God is just flexing his muscles, reminding Job how small and insignificant he is. But look closer. This isn't just a display of power, it's a shift in perspective. Imagine you're standing before a massive, complex hurricane, screaming at it because it ruined your picnic. And in response, the hurricane opens your eyes to see the entire global weather system, the way it balances the temperature of the planet, the way it carries life-giving rain to distant continents. Your picnic still matters to you, but suddenly you realize you're part of a system so vast and intricate that your individual logic simply cannot contain it. This is the core of the divine speeches. When God refuses to answer why, he is actually answering what. Job is stuck in the why. Why me? Why now? Why this much pain? It's a human-centric question, but God responds by showing him the what, the sheer vastness and wildness of creation. He's showing Job that the universe is not a well-ordered moral machine designed for human comfort. It's a wild, beautiful, and often dangerous masterpiece. To drive this point home, God introduces colossal creatures, Behemoth and Leviathan. Behemoth is the beast of the land, a creature with bones like bronze and limbs like bars of iron. Some scholars believe it's a hippopotamus, but in the context of the poem, it's something more. It's the embodiment of raw, untamable strength. Then there's Leviathan, the aquatic war machine. He breathes fire. His scales are like shields, and no human can conquer him. He's the Godzilla of the ancient world. What's fascinating is that God doesn't say he destroyed and hung monsters to make the world safe for Job. He says he made them. He takes pride in them. He lets the Leviathan swim freely in the chaos. This is the awe moment. God is expanding Job's peripheral vision. He's showing him that the world contains things that are beautiful but terrifying, creatures that serve no human purpose, and forces that operate far beyond human concepts of justice. By showing Job the complexity of a hippo or the ferocity of a crocodile, God is saying, if you can't understand the life of a wild animal, how can you expect to understand the mind that designed the stars? It's a pivot from the personal to the cosmic. Job's scream for justice is met with a divine silence regarding the why, but a thunderous revelation of the what. He realizes that the world is far more mysterious than he ever imagined. The why me doesn't get resolved by a logical explanation. It gets dissolved by a sense of wonder. Job's problems don't go away, but they suddenly look very different when set against the backdrop of the Pleiades and the fire-breathing Leviathan. He wanted a trial, but he got a revelation. He wanted a lawyer, but he met the architect. And for the first time in 37 chapters, Job is finally deeply silent. So Job finally speaks. He tells God, I despise myself and repent in dust and ashes. It is one of the most enigmatic lines in the entire Bible. Does he repent for being a secret sinner? Not likely. Scholars suggest he's repenting for his arrogance, for the hubris of thinking he could put the creator of the Pleiades on trial based on his limited, human-sized perspective. He has seen the whirlwind, and his why me has been swallowed by the vastness of what is. And then we reach the epilogue. The poetry ends, the straightforward prose returns, and suddenly it feels like we've stepped into a fairy tale. But before the happily ever after, there's a final twist. God turns to Eliphaz and the friends, and he is breathing fire. He tells them, my anger burns against you, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. Dwell on that for a second. The man who shouted at the sky, who accused God of being an enemy, and who demanded a lawsuit is the one God calls right. Meanwhile, the men who spent 30 chapters defending God's reputation with neat little theological formulas are the ones who are rebuked. It is a total subversion of what we expect from a religious text. It suggests that a raw, honest scream is more sacred than a polite, religious lie. Then comes the restoration. God gives Job twice as much as he had before, 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, a brand new family. On the surface, it's a Disney ending. The credits roll, and everyone is smiling. But let's be honest, does this actually satisfy you? If you've ever lost someone you love, you know that more stuff doesn't fix the hole left behind. In modern psychology, we know that grief isn't like a broken appliance that you can just replace with a newer model. Job's original children, the ones who perished in the windstorm, weren't just line items on a heavenly spreadsheet. They had names. They had memories. They had a specific place in Job's heart that no amount of new children could ever fill. We often read this ending as a cosmic undo button, but that's a mistake. If we look deep into the eyes of this older, restored Job, we don't see a man who has forgotten. We see a man with scars. The text says Job lived another 140 years. He saw 4 generations of his descendants. But he didn't spend those years in a state of amnesia. He lived them as someone who had seen the bottom of the ash heap. He lived as someone who knew that the universe could be terrifyingly random and magnificent at the same time. You see, the book of Job isn't about God fixing everything. It's about resilience. It's about the fact that life can and does continue after the unthinkable happens. The restoration isn't a bribe to make Job forget his children. It's a testament to the fact that beauty can grow again in a field that was once scorched by fire. Job dies old and full of days, but he dies as a man who has seen the whirlwind. His ending isn't a reset to a previous save in a video game. It's a new chapter. It's a scar that has finally, painfully, healed into something strong. He proves that while loss is irreplaceable, the human spirit has a capacity for survival that even the adversary couldn't predict. The masterpiece isn't the wealth he got back. It's the man he became because he stayed in the ash heap and refused to look away. So where does this leave us? We've seen the celestial wager, the ash heap, the cruel friends, and the fire-breathing monsters of the deep. And yet, after nearly 40 chapters of intense philosophical struggle, the one thing we all wanted, the why, is still missing. God never explains the bet with Satan. He never justifies the death of the children. He never gives Job a logical reason for his suffering. And that is exactly why this story is a masterpiece. The truth is, the book of Job doesn't exist to explain away our pain. It exists to show us how to live through it. It's a fail-safe in the human experience, designed for that moment when our neat little formulas about good things happening to good people finally break. It tells us that it's okay to scream, it's okay to demand answers, and it's even okay to find the universe's silence frustrating. But there is a deeper, more radical layer to this story that we often miss. We usually think of forgiveness as something a higher power grants to us. But in the ash heap, the roles are reversed. Real healing for Job didn't come from a satisfying explanation. It came from a courageous act of forgiving destiny. Think about it. Job had to let go of his demand for a fair universe. He had to accept a world that contains both the beauty of the morning stars and the terror of the Leviathan. To heal, he had to forgive the architect for building a world that wasn't designed solely for his comfort. This is the ultimate awe moment. It's the realization that while we cannot control the whirlwind, we can choose how we stand within it. Resilience isn't about finding a why that makes the pain go away. It's about expanding your vision until the pain is no longer the only thing you see. It's about looking at a scarred, imperfect life and deciding it is still worth living. Job's new life wasn't a reward for being right. It was a testament to the fact that the human spirit can survive the unthinkable and still find the capacity to plant a new garden. If you're watching this today from your own version of the ash heap, if you're dealing with a loss that doesn't make sense or a betrayal that feels cosmic, remember Job. He didn't get an answer, but he did find peace. He found a way to move from the why to the what now. And maybe that's the bravest thing any of us can do, to look at a world that isn't always fair, a world that is wild and unpredictable, and still choose to love it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Many of us have been taught that if we do the right things, we'll get the right results. But after seeing Job's journey, I have to ask, do you believe it's possible to love this life even when it refuses to be fair? Have you ever had to forgive a situation just so you could finally move past it? Let's talk about it in the comments below. If this perspective helped you see your own challenges in a new light, consider subscribing and joining our community here. Your support helps us keep diving into these ancient masterpieces. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next whirlwind.